Evening YouTube. So I've just got home from work and this evening I'm going to give my new little £10 bargain Sony speakers a bit of a service and check the connections in them. Because if you remember the last set of Sonys I got that was like this, all the connections in them were really loose, so there's a possibility that these ones might be the same. So before I start using them, I just want to check all the connections and make sure they look all good inside, and have a bit of a look inside, see what's going on, because I've never had a set of these open before, and they might be different to the other ones I had, because if you remember the other set that I had, they had no crossover. They just had one capacitor stopping the low frequencies going to the tweeter. So they had the most basic crossover in them that you can make. But these ones are a bit bigger than them ones, so these ones could have a proper crossover in them. They might not, they might be exactly the same as the other ones inside, so we shall find that out in a minute when I open them up. And this isn't really a repair video, because I don't think there's anything wrong with these speakers. I found them yesterday in my lunch hour in a charity shop, or you'd call it a thrift store. And as you can see there, they are Sony SS CP555S. So they are different to the other ones that I've got. These ones are a little bit bigger, and these ones are 6 ohms, and the other set I've got are 4 ohms. So they are different speakers, they are a different model number. I'll get one of the other ones down and show you. They really look the same. When I found them, I did think they was the same speaker. I thought the only difference was the ones I already had a Kevlar driver in them, and these new ones don't. So you can see there, that's the old one. That's an SSCPX1, and that one is 4 ohms. So if I turn it round, you'll see what I'm saying. They really look alike, these speakers. That's why I thought they was the same speaker, just with a different driver in them. As you can see there, they're exactly the same depth. It's just the ones I found yesterday are a little bit taller and a little bit wider. So I'm not sure out of these what ones are going to sound the best. Them old ones do actually sound quite good for what they are. On my little Sansui 310, them little Sonys there sound really good on that. So hopefully these new ones will sound as good as them old ones, or as they're a bit bigger they might even sound a bit better. I'll get my tape measure and I'll show you how tall they are. I'll give you the sizes. So that is, look, just under 11 inches high, that one. And the old one, that is about 9.5 inches high. So the old one is about 6 inches wide, and that new one is about 6.5 or just under 7 inches wide. So them ones got a 5-inch driver, and the ones I originally have got a 4.5-inch driver, but it is Kevlar, that driver, whereas the ones I found yesterday isn't. And the tweeter's bigger as well. I think it's the same tweeter, but it's about 25mm on the ones I already had, and about 30mm in the ones I found yesterday. And as you can see there, the repairs on the Rogers Ravenbrook amplifier have not gone any further, because I come to a standstill because I couldn't find my bottle of rubbing alcohol to clean all that sticky gunge off of the boards. So the Rogers is on hold until my bottle of alcohol turns up. So let's get the old one out of the way, put it back over here, and then I shall open up these two and just see what's going on inside them, give them a little clean, and just tighten up all the connections. Because like I said, on that other set I had, when I opened them up, all the connections were like hanging off. They was loose as anything. So these ones could be exactly the same. And I always check speakers out when I get new ones, whether they are working or not. I always open them up, check them over and give them a little service before I use them, just to make sure there is no loose connections or there is nothing that looks a bit dodgy in them, or sometimes just all the terminals and that look really dirty, so they really will benefit from a good clean. So if you buy yourself a set of speakers, it is worth just opening them up and checking them out, because there really is a lot of bodgers and lashers out there. So over the years I really have found some right old bodges that people have done inside speakers. So it is definitely worth having a look inside them before you connect them up to your lovely old vintage amplifier or receiver, because you don't want to blow that up because some bodger has done something dodgy in a set of speakers. Right, so let's crack on and open my little £10 bargain Sonys up, see what's going on inside them. So they are a little Allen key to get them screws out. So let's find a little one in my set. Right, let's try that one. Is that the right one? Yeah, that's good. Right, so get me screwdriver bit and here we go. Let's open up the £10 bargain Sony bookshelves. And I do think these speakers was a bit of a bargain for a tenner, innit? Because like I was in my lunch hour and I walked in the charity shop and just had a little look. I see these speakers at the back, and then when I looked at the price, tenner, or that's like $13, I thought, right, I've got to have them. Even if they're the same as the ones I've got, they're well worth a tenner. But then when I got home and realised they was different to the ones I already had, I was really happy with my charity shop bargain. So I tip 'em up, just get that driver out, and let's see if these ones have got a crossover in them or not. Are they the same as the other ones? Yeah, they are, look, just one capacitor. So all that's doing, that one capacitor, is just stopping the low frequencies going to the tweeter. And look how loose them terminals are. They're well loose on these Sonys. Look, that one, it just fell off so easy. They should be really tight, them terminals. Right, that one, although it's really loose, it's got like that little tab in the centre that locks it on there so it can't fall off. So you need to push it in. Just get me screwdriver. It's quite fiddly doing this when you can't see what you're doing. There you go, that went then. It's quite a heavy little driver though. That's quite a nice little driver actually. That looks like a good driver in these Sonys. It's a fair little bit of weight to that. Yeah, that's a nice driver. Lovely condition and all that driver. I wouldn't say these speakers are that old really. They look really good condition. So let's get me screwdriver again and we'll whip the tweeter out. Oh, so these ones haven't got a crossover in them. They're the same as the other ones. I did think because these were bigger they might have had a proper crossover in them, but they haven't. And I think, I'm not sure on this, but I think the other ones had some sort of soundproofing in them, but these ones haven't even got none of that. There is nothing inside these speakers. Or these might really benefit from a bit of sound deadening put in there. I've got some of that. I might put some in there. I won't do it yet. I'll listen to them first. But I do think a bit of soundproofing inside these speakers would really help the sound out. Oh, look how loose that one is. That's ridiculous. And that other one just fell off when I pulled it. See, that's what I'm saying. Whenever you get speakers, you really need to open them up and check them out before you start using them. Look, there's nothing in there. Nothing at all. That is as empty as old Mother Hubbard's cupboard in there. Oh, Sony, where's the soundproofing round the walls and the bottom? And look there, that is your crossover. That is all you get. Just that one cap. And that is the same in them other set of Sonys that I just showed you. And when I first opened them up and see that, I thought, oh, these speakers are going to sound terrible. But they don't. They sound really good, them other Sonys. So although this speaker has only got that one capacitor in it, it still could sound really good, this little Sony bookshelf. Well, let's not get carried away. I'll rephrase that. It could sound really good for a cheap set of speakers found in the charity shop. So I'll just get me deoxin out, put the straw in, and I'm just going to spray a little bit on the brush and clean the little spade connectors and the terminals. Now, I'm not doing this because they look dirty. I'm doing this because when deoxin dries, it leaves a little bit of residue behind, which actually improves the connection. So that's another little trick that deoxin does. It improves your connections when you use it on them. So I've just cleaned off the little spade terminals. I only want to do that little inside bit because that's the only bit that's going to go onto the terminal. And then I'll just do the connectors on the driver, give them a little go over with a little bit of deoxin. So we need, though, only needs a tiny little bit. You don't need to spray it on there. Just a little bit on a brush will be enough to do this speaker. Same on the tweeter. And it is cleaning these terminals as well, because they might have a tiny little bit of oxidisation on them, and then deoxit to get rid of that as well as making the connection better. So it's a win-win doing your terminals with a tiny bit of deoxit. So all I'm going to do now is get me long nose pliers and tighten up all them spade connections, because they was an absolute joke how loose they all were. And I would say they have come out of the factory like that, because that is the second set of Sony little bookshelf speakers that I've opened up and all the connections are really loose. And on them other ones I bought them with one speaker not working. And when I opened them up, all it was a spade connector had come off of the driver, where they was just all so loose inside. So if you own a set of these Sony speakers, open them up and check your connections, because the chances are the connections in your ones are as rattly as the ones in these ones. And then if you tighten them up, you really will improve the sound. So that's all the spade connectors tightened up a little bit with my long nose pliers. Now I didn't go mad, because you could easily squeeze them too hard and crush them spade connectors, so you just want to nip them up a little tiny bit. So I just thread the wires back through to the tweeter. And let's just put this on, make sure they're nice and tight. Yeah, they are tight. I'm having to wiggle that, get it on there. Look at that, lovely. Nice tight connection. See, it only takes a minute and it's well worth doing, because where they were so loose, they really would not have sounded as good as they can with nice tight connections. And that one's lovely and tight, so I'll pop that tweeter back in. I'm happy with that one. Pop that in, get the three little screws, put them back in and tighten it up. And I've found them loose spade connectors in loads of speakers over the years, not just on these Sonys. There's a ton of speakers out there where all them spade connectors are really loose. And it really will make them sound bad. They will not sound as good as they can with a nice tight connection. So it's well worth just to make sure all your connections are nice and tight. You don't have to do it with deoxit. I'm only doing that because I've got some here. If you haven't got deoxit, it doesn't matter. You will still really improve the sound just by tightening up them spades. So I'd give the drivers another little go over while my brush is still wet. So let's get the wires out and pop the driver back on now that the connections are all nice and tight. And you want these spades to be like not really hard to push on because you might break the driver, but you want them fairly difficult to push on. If they just slide on easy, nip them up a little bit more until you can feel a bit of force on them where you're putting them on, and then you know they're nice and tight. And that one could be a little bit tighter. I can still feel that one moving a little bit, so I'm going to take that one off and just nip it up a little bit more. Oh, it's a bit fiddly because they've got like a little pin in the middle, and you have to get the edge of your screwdriver on it and like push it through, and then you can slide the spade off. It does stop the spades falling off when they've got this, but it's really fiddly to get them off. There you go, that came off now. It's easier to do that with a pin, but I haven't got one with me. So nip that up a little bit more, because it was a little bit loose. Be a little clean. Right, and let's pop that one back on. Oh, that's quite hard to push that one on. There you go, it's going. That one's nice and tight. Both of them are lovely and tight, no rattling whatsoever. Right, so let's pop the driver back in. Get a little plastic surround. It's got little locating pins on that, so it goes in that way. There you go, that's back in. Put the screws in, and that's one speaker done. And now I've seen they are all loose in that one, I bet they are just as loose in the other one, because I really don't think no one's ever had these speakers open. That is as they are. So if this one is really loose, I bet they are the same in the other one. So I'm just going to nip them up a little bit. I'm not going mad with how tight these are, because they're only wood screws. You could easily strip like the wood where it threads into. So you don't want to go mad, but you do want to make sure the driver's in there nice and tight. So that's it. That's one done. One speaker ready to go, fully serviced with nice tight connections. So let's crack straight on to the other one. And I'll shorten up doing this one a little bit in the editing, because you don't need it full length like I've just done that first one. You've seen how to do it now, so I'll just speed this one up a little bit. So I shall take the screws out of the driver. Zip, 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 zip. Right, so that's the screws out. Take this little plastic bit off, pick the speaker up, and I'll tip the driver out. Right, so the driver's out. Let's see how loose these ones are. And straight away, look how loose they are. It's just falling off again. Same with that one. Look how rattly that is. That's ridiculous how loose that is. You can't get it off. I need to do it with my screwdriver again. 'Cause of that little pin, you need to push the centre bit in. But look how loose that is. That is so loose. That is ridiculous. And if it weren't for the little pin in the middle of that spade connector holding that on, that would have just fell off already. So this driver looks good as well. So let's take the tweeter out. Zzz, zzz, zzz. So that's the screws out. Let's pop the tweeter out. Oh, it feels well stuck in there, that one. Let's pop it out from the bottom. There you go. Let's see how loose they are on here. Oh, look at that one. That's ridiculous. Again, if you do own a set of these speakers, please open them up and check your connections. Because so far, every one of the connections in these ones and in the set before really all have been as loose as a man or a lady who has just had a double portion of laxative curry. So if you own a set of these Sonys, tighten them connections, please. And that one's just as bad. Look, just fell off. I can't believe how loose the connections was in here. Right, so let's get a little bit of deoxin and squirt a little bit onto my brush. Give the connections a little clean. Give the connections on the speakers a little clean as well. Get me long nose pliers and tighten up all the spade connections so they are not rattling around anymore. Do exactly the same on the ones for the driver. Just nip them spades up. Put some deoxin on the tweeter. And now let's pop the tweeter back in. Push the connection on. Yeah, that one's nice and tight now. No rattling there. Do the same on this side. Yeah, nice and tight. It's lovely. So you want it. You want them to be so you got to force them on a little bit. Pop the tweeter in. That's the wrong way round. Put it in the other way. That's better. Let's put the screws in. Zip, zip, zip. Bit of deoxin over the terminals on the driver. Make sure it's nice and clean. Get the wires out. Give them a little clean. And pop the driver back in. Slide that spade on. Yeah, nice and tight. Lovely connection that'll make. Same with this little one. Pop the driver back in. Get the little surround on it. Goes that way round. It's got like little tabs that hold it in place. Put the screws back in. Zip, 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 zip. And just go round and nip them up. And that's it, job done. So that's two speakers, both serviced, no rattly connections. They should be working nicely now, these speakers. So I'm looking forward to having a play around with these because I've got two sets of these now to play around with. So I'm looking forward to finding out which one of these is the best. Are the smaller ones the better sounding Sonys? Or are the bigger ones the better sounding Sonys? And also, because I've got four of these now, innit, I'll be able to put them one set on top of the other set and do 'em like in stacks, innit? So run all four together off one receiver and amplifier and see what they sound like when you've got two sets stacked on top of the other. So I'll just show you there, look, that is the price tag that was on them. So they was a great find, £10 bargain speakers, found in the charity shop or the thrift store if you live in America. So there you go, two sets of lovely speakers. Now the ones on the outside, the big ones, cost me a tenner, and that set in the middle, I bought them non-working and went and collected them, and I really didn't pay much for them. So I've got two sets of really cheap little speakers there to play around with. Now I know the ones in the middle sound good, especially on my Sansui 310, they sounded really good on that. They didn't like being on the Pioneer SX434. I couldn't get a good sound out of them on that. But on this Sansui and my Rotel, they've sounded really good. So hopefully the ones I got in the charity shop will sound as good as them ones I already had. So thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time. And don't forget, please, if you own a set of these Sonys, open them up and tighten up them connections.